Hello, it's Mr. Thompson here again, and I'm here today to talk to you about adding and subtracting fractions, which is grade D at GCSE or level 7 at Key Stage 3. In order to be successful, in order to do well and get the higher grade D stuff, you need to be comfortable with the grade E or level 5 stuff on equivalent fractions. So if you are not, I suggest you have a look at the video I have done on that. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by adding fractions. Now the fractions I'm going to give you, we're going to do a very simple example to start with. If I had a circle here and we've divided it up into halves. We have a half here and we have a half here. So the question we're going to do is 1/2 plus 1/2. Now what you need to realise, remember that the number at the top here on any fraction we call the numerator, and the number at the bottom here is always called the denominator, and that's how I'm going to refer to them from now on. Okay, so when we add or subtract fractions, we must have what we call a common denominator. That means that both fractions have to be written over the same denominator. So we can see here that this fraction here is written over 2, and this fraction here is also written over 2. So that means we can add them. And all we do is we add the top numbers, so we add 1 and 1. That gives me 2. We then, with the denominators, they do not get added. They do not get added. So they just stay as they are. And if we make reference back to the two circles I did right at the start, we can see that 1/2 plus 1/2 is going to give us 1/2. And any fraction where the numerator is exactly the same as the denominator, that is a whole. Okay, so remember the key points here. We add they must be written over a common denominator. So in this case it was 2, and we simply add the numerators to give us 2. The denominators stay the same. That gives us 2/2 for this example. Okay, let's do something a little bit more difficult now. So what we're going to do is I am now going to give you a question that says 2/5, and we're going to add to 2/5 3/10. Okay, now remember what I said at the start of the first example, that it must be written over a common denominator. So the denominator of this fraction is 5 and the denominator of this fraction is 10. And this is where the prior learning comes in, especially the grade E level 5 stuff on equivalent fractions. We cannot add them at the moment because the denominators are different. So what we need to do with this fraction here, we can see that the 5 is a factor of 10. So in this question here we're going to need to change one of the fractions so that they're both written over a common denominator. So because 5 goes into 10, we're going to take this fraction and we're going to find an equivalent fraction. Let's do it down here. I'm going to take 2/5, but we want to make it over 10. So what we can see is we have multiplied this by 2. So whatever we do to the denominator, we need to do to the numerator as well. So 2 times 2 gives me 4. Okay, so 4/10 is an equivalent fraction. It holds the same value as 2/5. Okay, so now we've got our 4/10, I'm going to write it under this original 2/5 here. So we've got 4/10, and we are going to add to that 3/10. All we've done is we found an equivalent fraction down here, and we are putting it back into our original question in place of the 2/5. Now remember what we did last time. The numerators are simply added. 4 plus 3 gives me 7, and 10 and the 10 of the denominators, they stay exactly the same. So our answer to the original question, 2/5 plus 3/10, is 7/10. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do one final example of this grade D material, and I'm going to start once again with fifths, this time 1/5, and we're going to add to that 3/7. Now you will notice on this occasion that once again they're not written over a common denominator, so at the minute we cannot add or subtract them, so they need to be over a common denominator. So what we need to do is we need to change one or both of them so that they are written over a common denominator. Now in the last question, the 5 we had was a factor of 10 in the previous question. In this question, 5 is not a factor of 7. So that tells us that we're going to need to change both this fraction and this fraction. We're going to need to find equivalent fractions for both. So I'm going to start with the 1/5. And I'm going to bring this 1/5 down here, 1/5. Now you need to think of a number that both the denominators go into, 5 and 7. If in doubt, I would just multiply them together, because 5 times 7 is 35. 35 is in both the 5 times table and the 7 times table. So we want to make it over 35. So 5 times what equals 35? Well, we know the answer to that is 7. So we're going to need to multiply the numerator through by 7 as well. 1 times 7 gives me 7. That's that one done. Now we're going to do this one here. So 3/7. It's the same as, we know that it needs to be written over 35. That needs to be our denominator. We have multiplied 7 by 5 to get 35. So whatever we do to the denominator, we're going to do to the numerator as well. 3 multiplied by 5 gives us 15. Okay, now what we can do is we can put these two fractions, equivalent fractions that we found, back in instead of the 1/5 and the 3/7. 1/5 is the same as 7/35. 3/7 is the same as 15/35. So we can do 7 over 35, and we're going to add to that 15 over 35. Once again, it's exactly the same as we were doing before. The numerators are added. 7 plus 15 gives me 22. And the denominators stay exactly the same. 35 stays the same. So the answer to our original question, 1/5 plus 3/7, is 22/35. I'm just going to do a very quick example with subtraction as well, just because we haven't I haven't done any subtraction questions. So let's do 3/4. Take away 1/5. Now again, remember 4 isn't a factor of 5, so we're going to need to change both of them. I'm going to start by changing the 3/4. Remember, a quick and easy way of finding a common denominator is just to multiply the denominators together. So the 4 times the 5 gives us 20. So I'm going to try and write 3/4, find an equivalent fraction to 3/4, which is written over a denominator of 20. You can see that we have multiplied our denominator by 5, so that's exactly what we're going to do to the 3, the numerator. That gives us 15. So 3/4 is the same as 15/20. Now we're going to do the 1/5. So 1/5 it needs to be written over 20. So we have multiplied the denominators by 4. The denominator, sorry, by 4. And now we're going to multiply the numerator by 4. So 1 times 4 gives me 4. So 4/20 is the same as 1/5. So we can now use these equivalent fractions. 15/20 take away 4/20. So this time, instead of adding, we're simply going to take away. So 15 take away 4 gives me 11. And the denominator stays exactly the same. 20 there, 20. So the answer to 3/4 take away 1/5 is 11/20. I really hope that video's been of use to you. Next is the grade C or level 7 material on adding and subtracting mixed number fractions. So if you're happy with what we've done here, have a look at that video. But until then, thank you very much and see you again. Bye bye.